Year 1957, Colorado. Hope is calling from a payphone at Camp Alpine Lake. She says she saw this number carved in the snow, exactly like the one that appears in her strange dreams. When she tries to ask who is speaking on the other side, only static noise starts coming from the phone. That noise suddenly becomes very loud and sharp, and Hope hangs up the phone in fear. Year 1982, Denver. Finney is brutally beating up a new boy who keeps begging for mercy. Finney doesn't stop until his sister Gwen comes and scolds him. Later, Gwen asks him what happened, and Finney says, "He attacked me first." Actually, Finney has now become famous as a tough and scary boy, because 4 years ago, he defeated a serial killer known as the Grabber. Then Ernie comes to them. He's the brother of one of the Grabber's victims. He asks Gwen if she would like to go to a concert with him. Gwen agrees. At night, Finney can't sleep, so he goes outside to smoke. He starts remembering his terrifying past experiences and imagines that the Grabber is still standing in his yard. Gwen comes to check on him, but Finney refuses to tell her anything. Meanwhile, at Camp Alpine Lake, a boy named Felix is having fun with his friends. But suddenly, in the forest, the Grabber starts chasing him. Felix runs and falls. The Grabber jumps on him and slashes his stomach with a knife, killing him. He throws his body into the lake, and before dying, Felix draws the letter W on the snow. At that exact moment, Gwen wakes up suddenly. It was all just a dream. The phone rings, Gwen opens the door and sees something strange across the street. Then Finney shakes her and says, "You were sleepwalking again." Gwen tries to tell him she had a terrible dream, but Finney just sends her back to sleep. The next day, Gwen researches supernatural events in the school library. Other girls make fun of her and call her a witch. Then Ernie comes. He gives Gwen concert tickets and says he likes that she believes in ghost-like things. He says his grandmother sells tarot cards, and he himself is interested in weird stuff. Gwen feels uncomfortable because her dreams had helped find the Grabber's victims' bodies. But Ernie smiles and says, "I like weird." After school, Finney goes to a store. There, he hears a payphone ringing. He picks it up and says, "Sorry, I can't help," and immediately hangs up. But then he sees the phone was disconnected. Meanwhile, at Camp Alpine Lake, another boy named Kel is happily joining camp activities. But at night, the Grabber chases him too, catches him, and chops him into pieces with an axe. He burns some parts and throws the rest into the lake. His ghost marks the letter B on the snow, next to the W. Gwen wakes up again. Another terrifying dream. She goes outside, and is shocked to see Kel's dead body in her yard. Frightened, Gwen takes her bicycle and rushes to the old Grabber house. She enters through the basement window, and where there's a black phone, she picks it up, and on the other side, it's Hope's voice. Gwen realizes that Hope also used to have dreams just like her. The only difference was that in Hope's dreams, the kids wrote numbers, and in Gwen's dreams, they wrote letters. Gwen tries to learn more, but the noise increases and the line cuts off. As soon as Gwen turns around, she sees the ghost of Grabber's brother. He says, "You shouldn't be here." Then the basement door opens, the phone rings again, and Finney comes down. He had come there searching for Gwen. Gwen tells him everything, that she had talked to their mom, Hope, when she was young. Finney laughs and says, "You're going crazy, Gwen," and spits before leaving. The next day, Gwen finds a pamphlet for Camp Alpine Lake. She tells Finney, "Let's go there as counselors so we can find out the truth." But Finney refuses. Their father, Terrence, hears this conversation and tells them that this is the same place where their wife, Mother Hope, used to work. He says the camp was closed in 1958, and he doesn't trust Christian camps. Later, Gwen convinces Ernie to go to the camp with her. Finney doesn't like Ernie, so he decides to go too, to protect his sister. After hours of driving, the roads get covered in snow and accidents appear. Soon they can't see the road anymore, so Finney says, "Stop the car, I'll walk ahead. You just follow me." After a while, a man with a flashlight appears in front of them. His name is Mustang. He guides them to the camp. At the camp, they meet Mustang's uncle Armando, who is the camp manager. He says that the kids won't arrive until tomorrow because the snowstorm has blocked the roads. Finney notices a payphone on the way. Gwen is sent to the girls' dorm, and Finney and Ernie go to the boys' dorm. Both places are empty. Only staff members are there, no children. Gwen falls asleep and has another dream. A boy named Spike, who was in the camp band, becomes the Grabber's victim. Before dying, he marks the letter H on the snow, and then his face splits into two. Gwen wakes up screaming. She hears scratching sounds from under the nearby bed. Outside, Finney is smoking again, and suddenly the same payphone starts ringing. He slowly walks toward it. As he gets closer, the ringing stops, and as he steps back, it starts again. This time he picks it up and says, "I can't help." But the phone rings again. He tries to walk away, but the ringing gets louder and louder. He picks it up again, and a cold voice says, "Hello, Finney." He quickly hangs up, but now the booth door closes by itself. He kicks it, but it won't open. The phone rings again. He kicks it hard, and the receiver falls down. And then that same voice says, "Hell isn't fire, Finney. Hell is ice, because cold hurts more than burning." Meanwhile, Gwen looks under the bed and freezes in terror. Felix is lying there. She backs away, but Kel's ghost grabs her hand and her skin starts burning. She tries to escape, but Spike moves toward the window and tries to open it. Suddenly, someone comes from behind, smashes the window, and the glass shards slice Spike's face in half. Gwen screams loudly, and at that exact moment, Finney's phone booth door bursts open. He runs straight to his sister's room. Gwen is completely shaken. She says, "I'm going crazy." Finney hugs her and says, "It's okay, I'm here." He applies ointment on her burnt mark. Gwen is too scared to sleep alone, so she goes to Ernie's bed. She still can't sleep. She closes her eyes and prays, "Jesus, please protect me from bad dreams." Ernie hears her. They start talking softly about faith, fear, and their family's beliefs. And in this dark, freezing night, a strange but comforting bond begins to form between them. Gwen says that her mother also used to have the same strange dreams, and those dreams eventually drove her insane. She's scared that the same thing might happen to her too. Ernie comforts her, and the moment between them starts becoming romantic. But just then, Finney walks in and tells them to go to sleep. The next morning, Finney gets angry at Gwen for telling Ernie everything. Gwen replies that now they need someone's help, and she shows him the burn marks on her arm, proving that these things aren't just dreams. At breakfast, Armando scolds Gwen for spending the night in the boys' dorm. Then he asks all three of them why they're really there, because he doesn't believe they actually came to be camp counselors. Gwen and Finney show him a picture of Hope. Armando immediately recognizes her. He says Hope used to work here as a counselor, and when he finds out she took her own life 7 years ago, he becomes very sad. Armando tells the kids to call their families and let them know they're safe, and says they can use the office phone. When Finney mentions the outside payphone, Armando says, "That phone hasn't worked in 10 years. After Armando leaves, Finney tells them that the same phone rang last night and he heard the grabber's voice. Suddenly, that payphone starts ringing again. Finney runs to it and picks up the receiver. On the other side, a boy's cold voice says, "It's so cold here, and we shouldn't be here." Then, the ghosts of 3 boys appear around the phone booth. Finney can't see them and keeps asking who they are, but the boys can't remember much. The next moment, the spirits get angry and start banging on the booth, and vanish as soon as Finney hangs up the call. Meanwhile, Gwen calls her father, Terrence, to tell him they're all fine, but Terrence is still worried about the snowstorm, so he calls his friend to borrow a snowplow. On the other side, Gwen and Ernie meet 2 staff members, Kenneth and Barbara, and ask if they have any books about the camp's history. Kenneth politely says they only have brochures, but Barbara is rude and judgmental. She mocks Gwen for sleeping in the boys' dorm and even insults her. When Gwen and Ernie ask about the 3 dead boys, Barbara snaps, "Good Christians don't discuss such filthy things." Gwen argues with her, so Kenneth steps in and sends the kids outside. That night, Gwen has another dream. This time, Hope picks up the phone, and the same 3 dead boys ask Gwen for help. Gwen sees Felix's spirit near the forest and follows him. Suddenly, red feathers begin to fall from the sky. Gwen looks down. Felix's jacket is lying on the ground, and Spike is watching her from afar. Then, an axe hits a tree and blood starts flowing from its trunk. Gwen screams and wakes up. The door slams shut, and for a moment, she sees her mother's face. She goes outside and sees Felix, who is leading her somewhere. At the same time, Finney wakes up to the sound of the phone ringing. He wakes Ernie and tells him to protect Gwen while he answers the call. Gwen sees both boys but decides to follow Felix. When Finney picks up the phone, he hears the grabber's terrifying voice saying he has come back for revenge, and this time he will destroy everything Finney loves, because it was Finney who forced him to kill his own brother. When Ernie reaches the girls' dorm, he finds it empty. He runs out to call the staff for help. Meanwhile, Felix leads Gwen to the camp cafeteria. Gwen follows a faint light into the kitchen where the ovens open by themselves and flames burst out. Some utensils fall, and their noise brings the staff rushing there. Suddenly, the grabber's ghost emerges from the shadows and attacks Gwen with an axe. Gwen fights desperately to save herself. The grabber ties her legs with his belt and knocks her down, then swings the axe again. Gwen barely blocks it, but now he starts choking her. Just then, Ernie and the adults enter the room. They see Gwen struggling on the floor but can't see the grabber. Suddenly, Gwen's body lifts into the air and slams against the wall. Hearing Barbara scream, Finney rushes in. Gwen is thrown toward the oven, but Ernie quickly grabs her legs. He tries to pull her back, but objects from the shelves start flying and attacking everyone. Mustang dodges them and helps Ernie. Then Finney arrives, and the moment he does, the grabber's ghost lets go of Gwen and disappears into the shadows. Later, everyone gathers inside the chapel. Gwen tells them about the boys she saw in her dreams. Armando identifies them and says he never stopped looking for them. Then he shows them an old photo from the last year the camp was open. Gwen sees Hope in that picture, and Finney recognizes someone else. The grabber was in that photo too. Armando, shocked, explains that the man used to work there as a maintenance worker, and everyone called him Wild Bill Hickok because he always wore his belt like a gun holster. Gwen remembers the letters she saw in her dream. They were WBH, meaning Wild Bill Hickok. She realizes this is the place where the grabber started his killings, Armando says that strange things have been happening at this camp for the past 4 years, and Finney immediately says, "That's the same year I killed the grabber," meaning his spirit is now free and has returned here. Gwen thinks that the grabber's ghost gets its power from the fear of its victims, because their souls are still trapped. So, if they really want to stop this ghost, they must find the children's bodies and set their spirits free. The police had never searched the lake because at the time of the murders, the lake was completely frozen. But Armando remembers that Bill had all the equipment for ice fishing, which means he could easily make holes in the ice. Thinking about this, everyone decides to search the lake in the morning. At night, Armando goes to his office to take the boy's photo when he suddenly hears a strange noise. He looks out the window and sees a snowman standing there. Armando thinks maybe Mustang made it. Just then, his radio turns on by itself. First there's a static sound, and then the grabber's scary voice says, "You forced me to kill my own brother." Armando replies, "You can't keep these kids with you forever." Suddenly the lights go out. He picks up a flashlight, but the next moment there's a loud sound. When he turns around, he sees the grabber's mask made of blood and ice on the window. The radio voice says, "I want to hurt you." Armando calmly says, "We will take these kids back, Bill." But the grabber growls in anger, "My name is not Bill." He starts punching the window hard and then suddenly disappears. The next morning, everyone searches the lake, but finds nothing. In the evening, Finney and Ernie tell Gwen that they'll take turns watching over her, so that if she has another scary dream, she'll be safe. That night, Gwen has a dream about a newspaper delivery boy named Billy. He's working when the grabber arrives in his black van and kidnaps him. This was the first child he ever hunted in this town. These memories also appear in Hope's dreams, and she immediately realizes that the grabber is the same Wild Bill who worked at the camp. In the real world, Gwen starts sleepwalking and goes outside, but Ernie finds her and gently puts her back in bed. The dream continues. Gwen sees Hope, her mother, getting out of bed and going outside. She follows her all the way to the grabber's house. Hope goes down to the basement where she sees a child locked up. She's about to run to call the police when the young grabber catches her and drags her into the van. Now, the ghost grabber also appears and forces Gwen to sit inside that same van. On the way, he tells Gwen, "I brought you here, so that before everything ends, you'll know the truth." The van stops in front of Gwen's house, and there she sees her mother's body hanging in the garage. The truth was, her mother hadn't killed herself. The grabber had murdered her and made everyone believe she took her own life. Gwen breaks down crying. Her father, Terrence, sees his wife and is completely shattered. When the grabber lifts his axe, Gwen runs into the house in fear and climbs the stairs, ending up in the same basement. There, the black phone starts ringing. Gwen picks it up and hears Felix's spirit's voice say, "Hide!" She runs toward the bathroom where she sees a hole in the wall that leads to a door. Gwen bangs hard on the door, but it doesn't open. Just then, the grabber swings his axe and cuts her arm. Her blood starts flowing, not only in the dream, but in reality too. Ernie shows everyone that Gwen's arm is actually bleeding, but no one is able to wake her up. Finally, Gwen breaks the door and comes out. She sees Felix. He shuts the door behind her so the grabber can't follow, and Gwen runs toward the lake. There she hears her friends' voices. They're trying to wake her up. Meanwhile, Armando is still searching the lake, and at last he finds Felix's body under the ice. He starts breaking the ice, but suddenly the grabber appears behind him and starts striking the ice with his axe. Gwen watches helplessly, but she can't leave the phone booth. The ice cracks, and Armando falls into the freezing water. He tries to climb out, but the grabber pushes him down with his foot. In the dream, Gwen keeps banging on the phone booth door, and in reality, she ends up punching Finney's face. The grabber smashes the glass, grabs the phone cord, and starts strangling Gwen. Her body begins to rise and spin in the air, and blood splatters across the room. Everyone tries to hold her down. Mustang throws cold water on her face, but Gwen still doesn't wake up. Everyone shouts, "Gwen, fight! Defeat him!" In the dream, Gwen hears their voices through the phone. She closes her eyes and focuses, and suddenly the phone booth explodes. The blast throws the grabber backward. Gwen screams, "Now the power in the dream is mine!" Then she headbutts him hard, and the next second her eyes open. She wakes up. Everyone runs to the lake, and they pull Armando out of the water. He tells them that he found Felix's body. They decide to search for the other two kids in the morning. When they return to the camp, everyone is shocked to see Terrence arriving there in a snow vehicle. Finney wants to leave with his father, but Gwen refuses. "I won't go until this is over." The three of them argue. Gwen snaps at both of them, saying, "You two are running from your pain instead of facing it." She tells them the truth about Hope, and finally, both decide to stay. The next day, the whole group searches the lake for the remaining two kids, but they find nothing. Suddenly, Gwen falls asleep, and in her dream, the grabber is seen skating on the ice. Gwen starts running, but slips and falls into a hole, and in the real world, her body also gets soaked. The grabber attacks Kenneth with an axe and drags him away. In the struggle, Kenneth's body hits Barbara. She falls, and her face slams hard against the ice. The grabber swings the axe at both of them. Under the water, Gwen sees some metal drums. She moves them and finds the bodies of the other 2 children inside. The grabber starts breaking the ice, and the rescue cable with the rope also falls into the water. Then he jumps in and wraps his belt around Finney's neck, choking him. Terrence dives into the water and helps Gwen lift the drums to the surface. Finney somehow pushes the grabber away and escapes his grip. Gwen starts praying, and suddenly, the souls of all 3 children are freed. In the dream, the children's bodies rise from under the ice and grab the grabber's legs, pulling him down. Then all 3 spirits block his path. Gwen picks up the axe and strikes his head and tears off his mask. The grabber screams in fear. Then Finney comes from behind and smashes his head against the ice again and again. Gwen cuts off his leg to free herself from his skeletal grip, and together they throw his body into the lake where the 3 spirits drag him down. The grabber is finally destroyed. When Gwen wakes up, she kisses Ernie. Sometime later, Armando calls the children's families and says, "We found their bodies." Just then Gwen hears the payphone ringing. She answers it, and on the other side is her mother's voice. "Gwen, you saved the children. I'm so proud of you." Hope says, "These dreams aren't a curse, they're a gift. And remember, I love you very much." The call disconnects. Gwen wipes her tears, smiles, and tells Finney what her mother said. All 3, Gwen, Finney, and their father, finally leave that haunted camp forever. So friends, I hope you liked this video. If you liked the video, then like, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Till then, bye.